Here's a chart of every NBA player who takes at least 1/5 of their shots from what I like to call the short mid-range area. Brunson dancing, behind the back, puts it up, punch it in. One of the hardest, least efficient shots in basketball. Among these 9 players, Brunson, at 6 feet 1 inch barefoot, is in the same company as players much taller than him, shooting 49% from an area that should be impossible for a guy of his stature to be this good at doing. In fact, out of these same 9 players, Brunson also has the highest efficiency from the long mid-range area, hitting a ridiculous 52% of his shots from an area of the floor that most teams have cited as the worst shot in basketball. But it's not really about how good he is at making tough shots, or how many of them he takes. It's about playing a style of basketball that nobody should expect a player of his size to excel at. It's about Jalen Brunson becoming one of the best players in the world without mastering what society wants from a modern-day NBA point guard. If you look at how many times he actually drives to the rim and goes up for a layup and compare it to other guards, Brunson attempts about half as many as his peers. On paper, this is something every team strives for, because more layups means you're probably breaking down the defense more effectively. But for Brunson, he does it his own way. His game is the embodiment of counterculture. It's blasphemous, but in a good way. And there's no better player to represent New York. Let's take a look at Jalen Brunson's unorthodox rise from a mere second-round pick to a role player in Dallas to a franchise superstar on the NBA's biggest stage. With the 33rd pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the Dallas Mavericks select Jalen Brunson from Villanova University. Hey folks, it's the NBA Finals, the most anticipated time of year, a matchup between 2 teams that not many folks expect to be here. So I want to give the sponsor of this video, SeatGeek, a huge shout-out. 35+ million downloads, over 70,000 events listed, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There's no better time to get tickets to the NBA Finals than right now. But in addition to that, you can get tickets for everything. The World Cup in June and July. Tickets are in high demand. With endless options for concerts, comedy shows, and other events, your choices are limitless. If there's a single series you can point to as Brunson's first ever breakout performance, it has to be the first round of the 2022 playoffs against the Utah Jazz. At this point of Brunson's career, he was still playing under the shadow of Luka Doncic. And throughout that entire season, they experimented him at shooting guard to play alongside him. Then, tragedy struck. Right before the playoffs started, Luka suffered a calf strain in the last game of the regular season, a crucial blow that forced him to sit out the first 3 games of the playoffs. During this era, the Mavs hadn't seen past the first round yet, losing to the Clippers in back-to-back years, and now it was in danger of happening again. The Jazz were a much more established team. They were the #1 seed the year before, and without Luka, all eyes were on the untested Jalen Brunson. What started as an underdog story quickly turned into the making of the NBA's newest superstar. Brunson exploded onto the scene in his first playoff games as a starter. A 41-point bomb in Game 2, followed by 31 points in Game 3, as he went toe-to-toe with Donovan Mitchell. We can't understate how impressive this was. Brunson, at this point, was a role player, yet he outperformed a perennial all-star. Beyond the scoring, however, the biggest intrigue came from the poise that this young man exhibited. For a lot of basketball fans, this was the first time we ever saw Jalen Brunson play. And from his composure, you wouldn't expect this to be his first time as a starter in the playoffs. The best way to quantify this is through a stat that people tend to overlook. Turnovers. Brunson averaged nearly 28 points a game, yet he turned the ball over 4 times total. You heard that right. He had just 4 turnovers in the entire 6-game series, displaying an absurd level of control over the offense that a player with such little experience should not be able to do. His low turnover rate has always been a strong feature of his game. It's been a point of emphasis through his time in New York as well. It doesn't matter what kind of defense he plays against, Brunson has such a tight dribble, with a strong, stocky frame to stay on balance and absorb the contact and not lose the ball. This was also the first time his footwork became recognized on the national stage. No point guard of his size has this amount of tact when it comes to the flurry of pivots and manipulating angles to his advantage. Brunson is quick but never had the same explosive athleticism of somebody like Anthony Edwards or Donovan Mitchell, so he had to find and master his own techniques. This series against Utah was a prequel to what the world would ultimately see in New York. The art of physicality that he enjoys to fight through. The leadership and meticulous approach to scoring, even down to the same exact shots he always loved. There's one natural advantage of a guy of his build. A 6 feet 1 inch guard with just a 6 feet 4 inches wingspan, he has an easier time keeping the ball closer to his body. So you combine that with his skillful handles and high IQ, Brunson has one of the lowest turnover rates of any primary ball handler. That's been consistent since Dallas and every season in New York. A sub 10% turnover rate is incredible when you consider how much the offense relies on him. Perhaps this shouldn't be a surprise. Pre-draft scouting reports did in fact describe him as an NBA-ready guard with great maturity and basketball IQ. Much of the hesitancy stemmed from his lack of size, his lack of defense, and starting his rookie season at 22 years old. Despite being nominated for almost every major award in college and making first team in several categories, Brunson fell to the second round. In a landscape of tall point guards, high-volume three-point shooters, dominant college centers, and long switchable wing players, Brunson's profile did not fit the criteria of what other teams were looking for. Now comes the moment where his career was met at a crossroads, the summer of 2022. After a successful playoff run in Dallas where they reached the conference finals, there were two main questions surrounding Jalen Brunson's free agency. One, is he actually franchise player material? We saw him briefly lead the Mavs by himself, but the sample size of Brunson playing without Luka on the court was a very small sample size. Perhaps the Mavs thought he was replaceable. Second, how much was he worth on the open market? Now, normally, when a team signs you to a rookie contract, they have the right to match any offer to keep you. But Brunson was a special case. He was a second-round pick, so after his rookie deal expired, he automatically entered unrestricted free agency, allowing him to join any team he wants. Due to this scenario, he's been in talks with the Knicks brass for a long time, due to the connection with his dad, Rick Brunson, and Knicks president, Leon Rose. It was, basically tampering. And it all but confirmed Brunson's arrival to New York was inevitable. The Knicks gave him a deal worth over $100 million, which, funny enough, was initially seen as an overpay due to the questions of him being the number one option. In reality, that initial contract he signed to join New York plus his extension a few years later proved to be the most team-friendly deals ever. By leaving money on the table, it successfully helped the Knicks build a contender around him. In 2026, he made less money than Jalen Suggs and De'Aaron Fox and Michael Porter Jr. You never see this kind of pay cut from a franchise player in the modern day. But Brunson's desire to win trumped everything else. What followed was the best period of Knicks basketball since the 1990s, as Brunson excelled above and beyond everything the fans had ever hoped for, and became definitively the face of the franchise. Unfortunately, over the years, the perception of Brunson as a player had always been very mixed. On one hand, Knicks fans feel he gets disrespected. For example, as of this video, Brunson has never made first-team All-NBA. He's never finished higher than a very distant fifth in the MVP race. That was back in 2024. Brunson was never once considered a serious MVP candidate. And part of that is, their records in the regular season have not been super impressive. But also cause Brunson himself does not put up the kind of numbers that look impressive, like the other MVP candidates. He's not a hyper-efficient 30-point-per-game scorer like Shea. He doesn't stuff the stat sheet with triple-doubles like Jokic or Luka. Nor does he have the physical stature and two-way dominance of Giannis or Wemby. Even as a point guard, he doesn't excel in things that are easy to relate to, like his passing. Brunson has great court vision, and like I mentioned earlier, his low turnover rate is a result of his calculated approach. He'll never make a flashy pass, but he'll make the right pass almost every time. Even so, as a player with a score-first mentality, his passing takes a backseat. He only passes the ball out of necessity, when he can't find the right angle to get a good look. There's nothing wrong with this, because it's clear through several postseasons that the Knicks are built in a way that relies on Brunson's scoring ability, perhaps a bit too reliant. At times, his play style has been the subject of criticism. But you know the saying, everybody is better than Jalen Brunson until it's time to be better than Jalen Brunson. In almost every playoff series, every matchup against an opposing star, Brunson outperforms them. Yet when a new season starts, everyone forgets that. And Brunson is still back down in the trenches. With all that being said, there's been plenty of times where Brunson's playstyle has been hard to watch. When his tough shots aren't falling, it looks bad. The entire offense looks terrible when he's not hitting them. Especially when the Knicks lost to the Pacers in 2 straight postseasons, because the stagnant hero ball wasn't working. Under coach Mike Brown, however, he never got rid of the Brunson hero ball. Instead, he found a way to make it better. The Knicks' offense became much smoother due to more off-ball movements by his teammates. Simple things like Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby cutting to the rim and being in the right spot for a pass. It opens up his game so much when his teammates are playing off his tendencies and movements, instead of just standing around. It's a massive game changer when Brunson has the option to pass it out when he gets stuck, instead of forcing a bad shot. Or even running the offense through Towns and letting Brunson play off of him instead, which also capitalizes on Towns' underrated court vision. The Brunson hero ball is still there in the fourth quarters, but it's more effective when the entire team helps him, which wasn't happening back in the Tom Thibodeau days. This is what makes him such a unique player. What other team has the balls to build a contender around the skills of a small, mid-range focus point guard? And when it wasn't working before, with so many critics thinking he can't be the number one option, the team ignored that and doubled down, fully committing to building around Brunson. Even giving up their entire future to find the best player to complement him. Is it crazy to say the 2026 Knicks are similar to the 2001 Sixers? The year Allen Iverson carried his team to the finals on a roster built entirely around him, which was unheard of back then for a 6-foot-tall guard. Considering Brunson has had the most fourth-quarter points since 2023 and put a stranglehold in every fourth quarter through the 2026 playoffs en route to the finals, maybe the Knicks were right all along. Another aspect of Brunson's game that's respectable but doesn't stand out is his three-point shooting. On paper, he's a very good three-point shooter, decently high volume with a good percentage, but much like his passing, Brunson's three-point shot is not a feature of his game, but a tool. A tool to help him get to his better spots, which is usually a closer shot in the mid-range. It's crazy when you put it like this. A player in this day and age willingly uses his own three-point shot as bait, so he can do a difficult move to take an even tougher shot. Brunson is the exception. Sometimes it's good to have your first option not fall in love with the three-point shot, because there are so many times when stars take too many of them, and forego the strengths of their game by settling for a shot that the defense wants you to take. Brunson, however, seldomly bails out his defender. They got to defend the old-fashioned way, by moving their feet to try and keep up with him. Brunson is not a perfect player, far from it. And because his entire shot diet consists of the most difficult shots in the game, there's always going to be bad shooting nights. There's always going to be games where he gets exploited. But the Knicks already knew that when they committed to him. Like any other imperfect player, they've made every transaction with his weaknesses in mind. And the result? The most complete NYX roster I've ever seen since I've been alive. From a second-round pick to playing under Luka's shadow to now the face of a franchise that has seen the biggest resurgence in my entire lifetime. There's no superstar remotely close to the journey he's experienced or the way he plays the game. Anyway, that's all folks. Let me know your thoughts on Jalen Brunson. Do you think you'll ever crack into the top tier of superstardom? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video. And of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.